In this video, I'm going to go through the top 3 reasons why you're probably still in hip pain. Hip pain can come in many different forms. It can show up as hip impingements when doing lunges or squats. It can be groin strains or hip flexor strains, sciatica in the glutes, or it could even be lower back pain. And I understand how frustrating it can be to be constantly dealing with hip pain, because for years I had really unstable hips that led me to develop a lot of groin issues and lower back issues when I was trying to push strength movements in the gym. But after a lot of trial and error, I developed some pretty strong hips and some pretty mobile and flexible hips. Before we get into it, subscribe to my channel if you like mobility focused content. Drop the video a like and comment below what issue you're dealing with. I'm going to be happy to answer any questions and help in the comments. The first reason why you're still in hip pain is because you have no hip strength. A lot of people will be able to squat down like this because on the surface it looks like they have good mobility, but they have no active control or strength in that position. So when they come down like this, their glutes aren't working, their adductors aren't working, and their knees are going to compensate, their back will compensate, their groins might compensate, their hip flexors. Because when there's problems at the hips or the hips aren't doing what they're supposed to, the body works like a chain. So there's going to be problems occurring downstream and potentially upstream also. Once you start to compensate at the hip, your movement patterns cause other joints or areas to do the work. So for someone who is trying to improve their ability to stay active with their hips in movements like squats and lunges, I'd recommend working on controlled goblet squats. Obviously, if you don't have great hip mobility, it is okay to use heel elevation just to help us get lower and to practice staying active in that position. But over time, we do want to get rid of the elevation so we can learn to use our ankles, knees, and hips all as one. So as you're going down for your reps, you're thinking controlled eccentrics. 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, if this is just your range of motion, that's completely fine. Eventually, you will be able to get lower, but when you're here, just focus on using the glutes and using the adductors. Focus on loading through the hips. So eventually, you're going to get a lot more comfortable with getting low like this, but not just having the mobility, it's being strong in this position. And a lot of people will put a barbell on their back and go to do back squats, but because they don't have the mobility or the strength through their hips, it usually starts to look like this. And that's why those hip flexors start to get super compressed and you start to feel that hip impingement happen. And this same concept can be used for movements like Bulgarian split squats with the main focus and intention of loading through the hips and keeping the hips engaged and active as you're in this bottom position. So as you push up through your foot, you're feeling the foot to glute connection. Of course, there are other ways to strengthen your hips, like Copenhagen planks or hip flexor lifts. But the best way to build strength through your hips is to load them in compound movements. And it's the mind-muscle connection and the focus and intention that's going to help you improve this. The second reason why you're still in hip pain is because you can't access your glutes. And this is directly linked to being able to build quality hip strength. Our glutes are arguably one of the most important muscles in our lower body. So when you cannot use them, there's just going to be compensation happening everywhere. If you cannot use your glutes in squats, it might start to look like this. You might start to flex through the spine and you might develop a lot of back pain. And because you can't use your glutes, areas like your hip flexors or your groins will become super tight because they're just being overworked. Also, the inability to use your glutes can often lead people to develop an excessive anterior pelvic tilt, which can lead to their hip flexors becoming super tight, and it can also lead to their hamstrings becoming super tight. Also, hinge movements can be affected because if you're not able to load into your glutes or the back of your hips, you're going to flex your spine and all of that load is going straight to the lower back. Even walking and running will be affected if you're not using your glutes, because again, something has to compensate for the work your glutes are not doing. Like I said when discussing trying to build strength through our hips, it's super important to be able to develop a foot to glute connection, because as we push through the floor, that force needs to be able to travel up into our glute to become as strong and as powerful as possible. And luckily for you, I have made a 7-minute follow along routine for you to smoke those glutes and get them working once and for all. If you want access to that video, just check the link in the description. Number 3 is you only train in straight lines. Our hips are literally a ball and socket joint, so if you're not giving them the movement that they need, your hips and your body won't be prepared for what life throws your way. So when I say training in straight lines, here's what I mean. A lot of people will work on movements like static lunges or regular squats, but when they do it with poor form, they might be working their quads and somewhat of their hamstrings or glutes, but they're not working their hips the way your hips need to be worked in order to stay strong and resilient. So the way you can improve a movement like a regular lunge is to add more inward rotation to engage the glute and just work your hips better overall. So instead of coming straight down like this, it's gonna look like this. And although training a squat technically is a straight line, the more depth and strength you build, the more benefits you will get from a squat. Another way you can train your hips that isn't just up and down is to start training them laterally. That was a bit of a mouthful for me, but you get the idea. Moving like this teaches us to load back into the hip, therefore getting our glutes working. So as you push back, you're sitting here, you're working that hip joint, and we're working all of that inner hip also. Use this as an example. If I only trained my hips in straight lines, I would never be able to do movement like this, which is multiple directions and doing it with relative ease, because my joints and my muscles are all working together, making movement way more efficient and stronger overall. You can also add more rotation into your hips with movements like hip airplanes. You can also incorporate rotation into movements like hinges, but just think, the more inward rotation, the more length that's happening through the glute. So not only are you going to improve your mobility, you're going to create space at the back of the hip joint. You're going to unlock your ability to use your glutes, which is going to lead you to develop more overall hip strength and mobility. So you might have already realized, but the 3 of these reasons are directly linked together, because when you start to add more rotation and more lateral movement into your training, which is going to make movements like squats become easier because you have proper hip stability. And of course, movements like squats are affected by the hips, but they are also affected by our feet and our ankles. So this isn't a one size fits all approach. Everyone is different and everyone needs something slightly different. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel, because I'm going to be posting a lot more content helping you improve your mobility, your strength, and to help you unlock your ability to move freely again. So drop the video a like, comment below if you have any questions or any comments in general. But again, catch you in the next one.